Well, good morning and welcome to the June allotment. It's a little bit breezy up here this morning, but we've had a sharp shower in the early hours. Not that I was here at that time of day, and it's actually really pleasant. Looks like it's going to be a very nice summery 22 degrees, which is a lovely temperature. Anyway, I thought I'd give you a little update on my plot because things have really romped away. Whoops, got a fence down here. Just change that one there. And thought I'd show you around plot 15. Quite a lot has happened since my last video. So there might be some bits I repeat, so I apologise if I do that. We did have quite a wet spell just over a week ago, so that was really good, which meant that all the water butts got filled up and everything had a really good soaking, so I'm delighted. And this is my Belotti bean bed, which seems to have some potatoes in it as well, but I'm just going to let those grow because they're fine there. I don't think they're going to be a major problem. But finally, the beans are romping away and they're going up the stems, which is lovely. I'm really pleased with that. And there's a few smaller ones. I've got some dwarf French beans in there as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I should get a good crop. But it does pay not, I have learnt this year, do not put my Belotti beans in until very late May at the very earliest. There's no point. And then this is my flower bed. I've got my lovely gladioli coming up here, in amongst some potatoes again. They seem to be everywhere. And there's a daisy in there, but I will come on to daisies later because that's a major project at the moment. There's some dahlias in there as well. And hopefully before long, there'll be a very nice show of gladioli. They are lovely to grow, beautiful. And they make lovely cut flowers as well. And then up here, I've got these were the broad beans that I sowed straight in the ground, so they've done very well. I'm very pleased with those now. They've caught up, and this is what tends to happen. You put young plants in a little bit early, and actually, if you wait, if you're patient and you stick your seeds in the ground much later, you will find that things just catch up. A little bit of kale down there, which is coming on nicely. The parsnips are looking very healthy. Obviously, they won't be harvested until very late in the year, but they're hopefully growing away nicely. These are the red onions that I put in. They're looking okay. And I'm very pleased to announce that the broad beans are now rocketing up the stems, so that's good. They seem to like the raised bed, and they've had quite a lot of moisture as well. And then over here I've got some spring onions, and sorry, my shadow's in the way there. I've got some spring onions, and I've also got some carrots growing as well. And then up here, I've cleared all the daisies from both my flower beds. These are what I call they're my pollinator beds. And that's why they're looking a little bit bare at the moment, because the daisies have literally taken over the whole plot. They've gone absolutely bonkers. And they're thugs. You just can't let them do it. If you don't do anything about it, they just end up taking over. If I left this allotment plot for a year, I guarantee the entire plot would be covered in daisies within a year. And I just don't want that to happen. So sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. And so I've taken all the daisies out of there. And I've also taken them out of here. And look what I found. Under all the daisies, I found this beautiful rose that I'd pretty much forgotten was there. So it just goes to show, plants will recover nicely if you give them the room to breathe. It's really important. And this here, this is a new thing. I put this, what I call my reel, in last year. And it's most of the time just been a trough full of manky green water. And I'd made a little water feature at home with some white pebbles and some plants. So I decided to do the same up here. And so I've made a little water feature. And so what I've got here is basically bits and pieces. There's lots of perching stones for birds and insects and things like that. And I just think that looks really attractive. So there we are. That's that one. And then over here, I have got my raspberries, which I said are looking a little bit yellow. I've got big plans for fruit this year. Fruit generally does very well on this plot. So my plan this year is to actually turn over about 50% of my allotment to fruit. And in the late autumn, some of the beds which have got black plastic on are going to become raspberry beds, I've decided, because I love raspberries. and they haven't got enough room here. They need more space. Under the net here are some gooseberries, which have got some gooseberries. I must pick some of those very soon. Under here, and I'll show you a bit more in a minute, I've got strawberries, and they are doing really, really well this year. I'm very proud because it's 4 years since I put the original plants in. All I do every spring, round about March, is I get some dung and I just put some dung around each plant. I don't even dig it in, I just chuck it on like a mulch. And that seems to do the trick. And I'm really pleased with how the strawberries, they just like that. They like rich soil and they like sun. And that's what they're getting here, which is perfect. Some nice flowers. The rose is doing really well. But I'll just show you under the net here. Just put my bag down. Because I am picking every other day a massive pot of strawberries. And I'll be doing that later. So I've got lots. There they are, look. They're so tasty as well. They're beautiful. There's a lovely one there. Look at that beauty. Absolutely lovely. Don't need to go to the supermarket because I've got piles of strawberries. And it's one of the few foods that's really nice and really good for you as well. I wish chocolate was like that. It'd be great. Wish wine was as well. But strawberries are one of those fruits that you can eat just piles of them, and they're actually really good for you, which is lovely. And then I can't remember if I did this last video, but I had a bit of a tidy up around the side of the shed, and that's all looking a little bit neater now, which is good. Some nice flowers coming. The nasturtiums are starting to grow, and what they will do by the autumn, they'll grow all the way up the shed, up that little trellis work, and they'll look fantastic for a bit until the first frost comes in November. The cosmos are looking nice as well. I'm very pleased with the fact the water butts are quite full. I've got loads of rainwater, so that's really good. I don't have to worry about traipsing up and down to the pump. The compost bins are pretty full. I did turn it the other day. The reason the compost bins are very full will become apparent in a moment. I shall show you my latest project, which may be quite controversial for some, so be warned. Lovely foxglove, digitalis. I've left it there just because it looks great. Once it finishes flowering, I'll cut it back because at the moment it's obscuring some of the beetroot, which haven't really done much underneath the leaves. So lots of beetroot growing nicely there. That's doing quite nice. I'll keep that netted for the time being. They're looking lovely. Beautiful. Very pleased with that. There seems to be some kind of random broccoli plant in there, but that can stay there. And my pear tree, I'm pretty sure that's a pear tree, but it's looking good. And my, oh crikey, is that an apple tree or a plum tree? How embarrassing. I can't remember. Let's have a look. It is plum. Yes, of course that's a plum tree. It's got no plums on it, but it's only in its second year, so we'll give that time. Now, here's the controversial bit. This wilderness was my nature area. The pond is still there, but it's become totally swamped with these daisies. There's still some there, look, and there's some over there. And whilst they're very attractive, we've had some quite high winds, and we've also, hello, Mr. Blackbird. What are you doing down there? I'm getting sidetracked. You're after my strawberries, aren't you? Well, you're not having them. Don't get stuck in there, whatever you do. You're after my strawberries. You're in there. I can see you. I know you're there. Luckily, I've got so many strawberries, I can afford to lose a few to a blackbird. I just don't want the bird getting trapped in the netting because they will. I'll sort that out later. Anyway, sorry, sidetracked. So, where was I? Oh, yes. So basically, this entire area was completely covered with these white daisies. Then we had some quite strong winds and lots of rain, and it all went flat and everything was covered. And it just looked a complete mess. And I also knew there were some other plants underneath that just weren't getting any daylight or ventilation. And there comes a point sometimes where you just have to clear things and start again. And that is exactly what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to cut back all the daisies. I'm going to dig most of them out, if not all of them actually. And I'm going to check the pond out and see what there is in the way of wildlife in the pond. If there's newts in the pond, I will leave the pond where it is. If there's nothing in there except a load of sludge, I have got another water feature and I could make another small pond somewhere just to pop them as an interim measure. But I'll probably then eventually fill the pond in. And I will probably turn this whole area over, because it's quite a nice space, to fruit production. And I know some people will think that is absolutely shocking, getting rid of your nature area. But this is an allotment and it's for growing food. That's what I see it for. And I have got some nice pollinator areas over there. I've got various flowers I'm growing dotted around. And I will allow some of the daisies to just naturally propagate themselves, because they're over there, for example, looks quite nice. So I'm afraid this nature area is going to disappear. I mean, things like this tree, for example. This is an apple tree and it looks in a terrible state. And I think it's probably because it's just been completely engulfed by other plants. So I'm going to leave it there for this year, see how it goes over the winter and see how it copes next year and go from there. But ultimately what I will do with this area, excuse me, is I will clear it and I will cover it, and then in the autumn I will uncover it and I will plant some bare root raspberry canes here. I think that's most likely what I'm going to do, and that will also involve removing some of these bits and pieces, because the courgette over there has been stripped to pieces. That's a pumpkin and it really isn't doing very well. So there is an argument sometimes for moving things and changing things. There's a geranium down there I can move. I'll see what it looks like when it's completely cleared. And as I say, the pond will dictate my decision, because if the pond is full of wildlife, if it's got newts in it, for example, or anything that's, you know, looks like it's built a life there, then I'll probably leave the pond where it is. And I might even just section it off and keep this little bit as a wild area and then have this bit for growing fruit. So there's always a compromise to have. So it's always nice to have a wild area on your allotment. But it is an allotment and it's just about managing it. And at the moment, it just looks a mess and it's not really doing what it's meant to be doing. So I know that will be controversial to some. So I apologise if you're a Chris Packham nature fan. Sorry, Chris, but I know you wouldn't approve. I just think sometimes you've got to manage a space. I'm more of an Alan Titchmarsh in my views, in that gardening is about managing, and sometimes you've just got to manage a space and make it work. But that's just my opinion, my Beck's point of view. Right, then I've moved the scarecrow. So the scarecrow has moved simply because it was blowing over at the top and I've got nothing in that tyre. So it's a bit random, but it looks fine. It doesn't seem to deter the blackbirds, though. They're still eating my strawberries. Then I've got my purple dwarf beans, which are now in flower, which are looking lovely. Down here, I have got some carrots. They really ought to be thinned out. I need to get on and do that. That's another job I'll come up and do. And then I've got here some broad beans. And I've already picked some. They've got a bit of black fly on them. Don't let that worry you. If your broad beans are covered in black fly, you can still eat the broad beans. They look horrible, but you can still eat them once you get them out of their shells. They look absolutely fine. And we had our first risotto the other day with some broad beans from first batch from the plot, and they were absolutely delicious. So they're those. And then my potatoes. Now these are first earlies. I should be harvesting these by now, but they haven't flowered. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I think they're starting to die back. So I think I'll let them die back and then I'll see how they get on. And I find with potatoes, if I make the effort to plant them like this, they generally don't do very well. If I let them just come up randomly, any old place, because I've left one in the ground by accident, they tend to do really well. So that I think there's a lesson there, isn't there? So having said you must manage your space, sometimes it's actually okay to leave everything alone. It just depends on what it is. Apple tree is looking very well stocked. And I can't see many have fallen on the ground yet. Normally June you get something called the June drop. So if you've got an apple tree and you start finding apples all over the ground, don't panic, because it's the tree's way of thinning itself so that it can produce good quality fruit. But I'm going to have a bumper crop on here this year, which is wonderful. There's quite a few plums on this plum tree. It's hard to see them, but there's actually quite a few. And it's looking huge, absolutely enormous. I'm going to struggle to reach some of those. And then lots of pears. I hope they get nice and big. So that's looking good. And I've got a few lettuce down here. The slugs have finally stopped eating my lettuces, which is good. I'll keep those covered though, because the birds will just munch their way through those. And there's just a few beetroot. And that's pretty much it, really. As I said, I'm not using my whole plot this year. I'm actually... Oh, that seat's too wet to sit on, so I won't sit down. But I'm not using my plot this year to its full extent. I'm giving some parts of it a bit of a rest. And the plan ultimately, and I'll just quickly show you before I finish, will be, as I said, to pop some raspberry canes in at least some of what is now my nature area. Over here, I'm going to have some more strawberry plants because I love growing strawberries. And my strawberry plants are living on borrowed time now, I think. They're doing really well. But I think the key with the strawberries is to let some runners grow out this year, transplant some of those later on in the autumn, and put some fresh plants in as well. So I'll pop some strawberries here because it's quite nice and sheltered. I may pop some fruit canes of some kind in this bed here, and then I'll have fruit at this end of the allotment. I'll have fruit at that end of the allotment, and then I've got all these lovely raised beds for growing vegetables, and I just need to make sure that I rotate those. So that is the June allotment. We're in a busy season, but we're also in a season where it's actually really nice to sit back and look at what needs doing. And what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to cut my grass paths and give those a trim just to tidy things up a bit. I'm going to carry on clearing that wild area, and then I will harvest some strawberries, and by the time I've done that lot, it'll be time for my lunch. So thank you for watching Pink Octopus Productions. Please subscribe. We're building our channel very gently and it's going really well, and we're really enjoying making these videos. And I don't proclaim to be an expert gardener by any means. There may well be some of you sitting at home watching this video thinking she has not got a clue what she's doing. You can think that, and you're probably right. And I think that's the best thing about gardening, is you just go with the flow, really. I follow my instincts. I do what I think needs to be done, and I don't get it right a lot of the time. But I'm very proud of this plot, and I love having an allotment, and it's really good fun. So thank you for watching Pink Octopus Productions. Please subscribe to our channel and have a lovely day. Thank you. Reasons that I love having an allotment so much. When you get to June and you start picking fruit, and look at that lovely haul of strawberries this morning. I'm picking that amount. I'm not very good at estimating, but I'm suspecting there's knocking on for a kilo maybe of strawberries there. Yeah, easily a kilo, I reckon. And I'm picking that amount of strawberries every other day, and they are so delicious. They are absolutely delicious. My favourite way of eating them is just having them fresh, to be honest. Maybe with a little bit of Cornish ice cream or some natural yogurt, or just with other fruit like cherries or raspberries or whatever you want. They're really good for you as well. I think that's what I love about strawberries. Not only do they taste amazingly delicious, but they're also very, very good for you. But there's lots of people do things with strawberries. I mean, the obvious things are things like making like trifles and jams, but they're quite sugary. Compot's quite good, doesn't have quite so much sugar in it. What I do with strawberries, if I have a surf eat, and I've definitely got one of those again this year, I actually freeze them. And what you do is quite simple. You basically, I can't really demonstrate it very easily because I haven't got a knife up here, but you do what's called hulling the strawberry, which is basically where you get the, there you go, I'll show you. So you've got this little green bit at the top. You have to take that out, and there's a little white bit inside the strawberry that's attached to. So if you get a small sharp knife and just cut around the top, and then just very gently take out the green bit, the stalk, and you'll take out a bit of what it's joined to, and that's called hulling. And what I do, I rinse the strawberries, I hull them, and then I get a baking sheet with some greaseproof paper, like baking sheet paper, put that on top of the baking sheet, and then I just put the strawberries individually on the baking sheet, making sure they're not joined up. And then what I do then, you stick them in the freezer and let them freeze solidly, probably for a good couple of hours. And then when you take them out and they're frozen solid, you can actually take them off the sheet really, really easily. And you can put them in a plastic freezer bag and put them back in the freezer, and they don't stick together. And it's a real pleasure when you get to, like, I don't know, November, December time, and you just think, oh, strawberries. Remember those lovely days of strawberries? And you can actually have some strawberries. They're not quite as nice as they are picked fresh, but it's still got that summer flavour, which is, there's still that reminiscent summer feeling, which is really nice. So, this is one of the reasons I love having an allotment. And I guess, how do I grow such good strawberries? Well, my allotment's on a nice open sunny site, which helps. But there's it's what I call the Holy Trinity. And I apologise now because I am going to use a rude word. But basically, it's sun, rain and shit. It's as simple as that. So a bit of horse manure, probably the best you can do really. Bit of horse dung around the strawberries in March, when they're looking a bit crabby and horrible and you think they're never going to amount to anything, but they do. It's also worth, when the fruits start developing, getting some straw. I just go to the local pet shop and buy some hamster straw or something like that, guinea pig straw, and just getting some straw, and that just supports the berries and stops them going mouldy, because we do get a wet spell, they can go very mouldy. And I think patience, it just takes a while for the strawberries to get going, and you might have a few to begin with and you might think this is really disappointing, there's not going to be much. But once the temperature warms up in mid-June, and once you get that lovely you get a lot of sunshine and you get lots of light. Oh, there's a little mouse just popped across. Oh, I saw that out of the corner of my eye. Where's that come from then? Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked again. That was a little mouse. How exciting. It certainly wasn't a rat, it was definitely a mouse. Anyway, back to my strawberries again. So this is what is lovely, is that you just basically wait for June to come along. And it's very low maintenance after that. They just go mad. And it's a lovely season. So beautiful. In 2 days' time, I will come up here again and I will pick at least the same, if not more. Just as well I like strawberries. That's all I can say.